Scream 6, and now we're acknowledging that we're on the 6th one, is directed by the guys who directed Ready or Not, and this film once again stars Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. I've never been a huge fan of the Scream films. I can appreciate what it means to people. I do enjoy the meta self-awareness of the movies, but I never saw Ghostface as being that menacing. It was more about the mind games to me that had any type of value, but as a slasher, he was such a clumsy killer. He's lunging at people, tripping over stuff, having things fall on him. It always seemed so goofy to me. But with that said, the first Scream has always been my favorite, and with the remake last year, I felt like that was basically the first movie, but they did everything worse. With Scream 6, right off the bat, it feels like its own movie. It feels like the franchise is headed in its own direction, and I think that helped this film a lot. It does a great job of feeling more unique and suspenseful. Ghostface also feels much more menacing, like this angry killer, which in general made the movie feel a little bit scarier than any of the other Screams in my opinion. Ghostface felt like more of an unstoppable force in this film, a little bit more like a Michael Myers type. Some of that came from the fact that the killings were much more brutal feeling this time. They made it feel like Ghostface was extremely efficient as a killer, but it wasn't only his efficiency and brutality this time around, it was also thanks to really clever set pieces and sequences. You can tell they were having a good time directing this movie because of how creative it was. There's one sequence in particular where they're on a train, and you can see some of that in the trailer. And because it's around Halloween time, you have all these people dressed up in Halloween costumes that look like iconic killers, a lot of them being Ghostface, so you're not sure who it is, and right off the bat, that's a really clever thing to do. But what made it even better were the wide shots, where you can see the whole train from our main character's perspectives, but you're not sure who's who's the real Ghostface killer, and he uses lighting in a really clever way. The lighting keeps going out and then coming back on, getting dim again, and every time that happens, everyone shifts around, you're not sure where Ghostface is. It was just a clever way to knock you off your feet and get you a little bit nervous. I felt more suspense in this film than I've probably felt in any of the other Scream movies, just thanks to a few clever original ideas like this. One of my biggest criticisms of the Scream remake from last year is the fact that the entire movie is mid-shots and close-ups, and what happens when you do that is it takes away some suspense. Your focal point's on the character, and you feel a little bit too safe. There's not enough room on the other sides of the screen to make you wonder where the killer's at or what's going on. The original Scream movie had a ton of wide shots. The entire movie was wide shots, and it made it so much better. And with that said, I'm really glad that Scream 6 redeemed itself, and the train sequence is an excellent example of that. And in terms of the scariness, it also helped that the kills were much nastier this time. I'm kind of glad it's going this route. It helps it feel a little bit more modern than the first one did because it was mimicking the original so much. But in terms of being a scary movie, overall, this one succeeded much more than its predecessors. And it wouldn't be a Scream movie without its meta edge and its self-awareness, but it's getting a little bit old for me, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's the franchise at this point. It almost felt so meta and trying so hard to be self-aware that it actually became not self-aware. The best way that I can put it is that the originality and creativity of this film shone some light on how old and dry some of those old tricks of the typical Scream movies are. It makes the meta edge feel like a one-trick pony all of a sudden, and I'm getting tired of it. But at the end of the day, you can only do so much with a dude in a ghost face mask with a knife. So maybe some of that repetition's just from the concept itself. Something that was fresh for me though is how much I cared about the core group of friends. There were some characters from the remake that I honestly didn't care about at all in that film, and they found a way to make me care in this movie, and I really appreciated that, because it's a little bit hard to feel suspense when you don't really care if people die. And me caring about that friendship and that group was thanks to good writing, but it was no thanks to the performances. Now, disclaimer before I delve deeper into that, I've always felt from the first Scream movie that the dialogue and acting in Scream movies is cringy to me. It reminds me of growing up in the 2000s watching Teen Nick and cringing even as a kid. There's something about it that just doesn't work for me. But with that said, some of the standout performances were from Jenna Ortega and from Dermot Mulroney as Detective Bailey. At the very least, they're acting with a full range of emotion and making it look easy, whereas the main character, played by Melissa Barrera, acts with one emotion for the entire film. And it's the same issue I had with the remake last year. I thought Sydney's a much better lead, and I couldn't help but feel like Marissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter didn't offer anything new or better to the franchise. And unfortunately in Scream 6, it's the same way. She acts with one emotion for the entire film. She always has the same look on her face in every single scene. It reminded me of watching Captain Marvel, where I had the same exact issue. And there's this storyline developing with her character that's a big driver in the background of this movie, and I think it's going to continue on with the franchise. But the setup does absolutely nothing for me, and her acting on top of it does even less. And I felt the same way with the big reveal. It's one of those things that was so so obvious that you think at the beginning of the movie there's no way it could be this, but then it actually is. It felt like the writers told a little kid to go write the most random thing possible that made the smallest semblance of sense that connected to the last movie somehow, and they actually went with it. As much as I had issues and complaints with last year's reveal, Scream 6 does a much worse job. There were issues with the opening and closing of the film, to be honest. They tried to do something new and original, so I'll give them that credit, but both of them were painfully predictable and poorly executed overall. If they could have just cut 5 minutes off the end of the movie, it would have made it so much better. Overall, it's fair to say that the film has its issues, but for a Scream movie, I can see people really enjoying it. At the very least, it does something new in making Ghostface a scarier killer and being a scarier and more suspenseful movie overall with really creative scenes and ideas. Not being a huge Scream fan in general, I'm trying to be fair about it, so I really do think if you're a fan of Scream, you will enjoy it. If you're like me, I don't think this movie is going to do anything drastically different enough to pull you into the series and introduce you to it in a new way and make you like it. And at the very least, I can say that Scream 6, in really specific ways, does do some things better than the original, something I couldn't say for last year's movie, so that's a win to me. Anyway, thank you guys as always for watching. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about a new ranking system? I want a way to rank the movie at the end of the review, but I want something original. I don't want to do A through F or 1 through 10. So let me know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks as always for watching.